In this part about Nikolai Frederick Severin Grundtvig's life, we are about to talk about him as a priest. That's a big and complicated issue as well, but in the book of Annas Holm, it's made fairly understandable, um, highlighting in several places how he got his ideas and doubt and changes. One of the very, very strong and profound ideas he got was the seven Christian groups that should renew Christianity. It's like the seven angels taken from the text of part of the New Testament that's talking about that kind of seven angels that will come to the church. They see it as like the seven renewals of the faith. And suddenly he got this feeling that he was one of these persons who's going to renew the ideas of the faith in a time where they are fading out. His big trouble from that time is that rationality has kicked in also among people and also in himself. He could see that the critical approach to the Bible has got a widespread audience. People could see that, well, the texts do not have that coherence that you would think they have as a as a text from God that's not for discussion or talk. So how to relate to that? That was one of his big troubles, and he had this trouble in several parts of his life back in 1803, 04, and then later in the 21 to 22, 1821, 22, he also gets back to that kind of doubt, because the criticism of the Bible had really shown that, well, the text can be contradictory, and writing shows several pens and different persons writing, and it shows a lot of things that does not really correlate with modern science and understanding. Also, the picture of the world, well, has been like different from the one that science has discovered. So that also made people think, well, can we rely on this text? Is this a good foundation for the belief that I'm carrying with me? And so that question also was something the priest has to deal with. And he tried as well dealing with that. In the beginning, he was very hardcore. In the first 5, 10 years, he really led this battle for the word of the Bible as the truth and the source for understanding life and what's in it. And he had that idea that no matter what the modern sciences are saying, well, it will stay the same with the Bible. It's the word of God, and that's what we have to relate to. But then later he changed that idea slowly, because he started looking at, well, the evidence of the modern science was not easy to overcome. And the critic of the Bible as a written text, like in the semantics and the way of writing and the contradictions and the personalities that's appearing there and the different nuances in the stories, show a lot of things that maybe could be put under a strict light of rationality. That can we really rely on this? Is this really a text you can say is the direct word of God and live your life by it, or should we more follow scientific proofs? This is the battle that has been going on for several centuries when Grundtvig came around and was alive in the 1820s. And so what to do about that? And so he writes in two places. First, he said, everything I've written has been about the one-sided belief in the text as a God from world given to us, revealed to us, and in my belief in Jesus Christ, and the only way to salvation for the humans with sins. That part of my life has been what I've wanted to give enlightenment on, and so everyone who would read it would never be in doubt that I am speaking because I believe. So it was his faith that was really leading him into his work as a priest. There is another side for being a priest at that time as well, and still today. That is a kind of organizer for the groups around him and the people in the parish. And so it's like he is the one who, on behalf of the state, is keeping record on people, births and deaths, and what's going on with them, and he had a central place. So did most of the priests. They had a central place in that old society as persons people go to when they have troubles or they're going to get married, and he's a central figure that people calls in to their homes and houses, and when there is any occasions. And so in that perspective, he was part of that group of central figures that the state also wanted to flourish, because that's the part of the culture they are upholding. We are still in the time of the kings, and how the king is ruling the country is also how the priests are telling the story of who they are and how they should listen to that king. And all that was under the change, as we will see in the part where he's a politician. And so up to 1822-23, he had this this view that he had to rely on the Bible as the way of life. But then later, he got inspired by a theologian from the old ages, from actually one of the first centuries, 130 to 200, called Irenaeus of Lyon. He wrote about the confession and the growth in the church as a life that becomes to life in growth. And so also that there will be a kind of resurrection of the body as well as the soul, and that it's all part of what is God given by God. And that inspired him a lot, alongside the idea of the 7 parishes and the 7 renewers that will come. There is a text in Johannes in Johannes Revelations showing that there will be 7 stars that will shine on the church, 7 angels will come. And so he saw that as a kind of renewal of the church and its role, and that by he saw himself having a certain position in that. He could feel that he had this prophetic abilities, and that it's like something called him to take on that role. And that became more and more certain in him, that he will find a way to renew the belief in the church and shine the light on God and Jesus and the Bible again. So he wants the Christian faith, that monotheistic way he see it, to go on in the modern times, and so people can keep holding on to it and do not leave it behind. And so how to do that, and what is the way forward? And then he discovered what he called his very unique and special discovery, that that people should be surrounded by other believers, and in that spirit of the believers, that the church will go on revealing its truth, not strictly by reading in the Bible, both Old and New Testament. That alone won't be the fundament for the church, but it would be a group of believers who in spirit gathered there will have God's Spirit with them. And by having God's Spirit with them, by the songs and chants and psalms and going to the altar and sharing the bread and wine and sharing the life of Christ in that way the Christians are doing, he will find that the truth is going on and is living on in the people. So it is the living word, as he said, that's going to be the renewal, and not the text in itself. It's okay that this text now has been criticized, but to go on, it has to be the faith in the church, the spirit of it, that's going on from generation to generation. That idea he got there got him into some trouble, because he started writing about it, the answer of the church, or the returns answer of the church, made him also popular among people who wanted to renew their faith, but also under a kind of criticism to those professors who has taken the criticism of Christianity too far. He became really under pressure, and so because he was very harsh in his words in his young days, he got under censorship. He lost in court a case that was raised against him for a personal attack on this professor, and so he lost and was put under censorship for almost a decade. In that decade, he learned how it is not to be able to speak in public gatherings, neither in his church, and he could not stand there, receive people by the altar, receiving the wine and bread, like the body and blood of Christ. That is the position, most central work of the priest, and most holy thing that people go to receive in the Sunday church preaches. And so he just felt that in these years things were closing down around him, and he felt like this lily in the field all alone by himself, and really misunderstood by many. But at the same time, people were also liking him more and more. His songs and psalms were getting out to people in different ways. And then this censorship lifted in 1837, and then the king was very favorable to him, and so he got the position of being the parish priest in a special position in Varto Church inside the central part of Copenhagen, where he stayed until his death in 1872. And so that's many years where he was speaking, writing, talking, living, and having a lot of influence on what's going on, both in politics and culture and among the people. And he got greater amounts of people. He received many people, and he talked to many, and many people liked his way of expressing Christianity as that human value that they wanted to see. We were in the times of the Enlightenment, and so people wanted what gives the human value. This is the idea from the Renaissance, and he grabbed that, because Christianity has been, up until then, well, a way of, not totally, but in most of the preachings and the way it was reflected to people as, stay in your position, you are not worth a lot, you are a sinner, and you have to get the salvation from God by taming your wild instincts and thoughts and ideas, and you have to listen to the authorities. And he changed that somehow, saying, well, it's the free word. It is the living word among us, the Spirit of God, and the humans have value in themselves, even before they have been Christian. The robber on the cross beside Christ was also of value in himself, because he was a human being, he says. Not just because he received the message or the blessings of the Christ. And the same he goes saying, well, every human has been born of that valuable Spirit of God, given in that human form, and in itself that is something to be taken into consideration. So and somehow he's giving a more cheerful, light idea of that being a believer is also being a one who is fond of life and thankful for it, and in many ways also feeling you are worthy of this blessing. And the change that will come to you by believing is that you will relieve yourself from the evil forces by going and becoming, if you are born into Christianity and the kid is going to the font to be baptized, he will be like cleared from those evil forces and the sins and the troubles that will be following him in life, and he will be more free in his life. This is the interpretation he got to, and people liked that, grabbed it, and made it also part of their way of life. And so these very, very much alive songs as well, and psalms, made him also very popular, because he really got to the spirit of the people and used the language that they really could see themselves in and try to relate to, from like the field and the birds and the seeds and the wind. He used a lot of metaphors and a lot of comparisons with something people knew from their life and combined it to that spirit. And sometimes he started by praising God or the angels that came down on Christmas Eve and was waiting for the guests to come and the birth of the Christ to be, and so on. And so in that way people were really part of that spirit that he was delivering to them through histories, through psalms, through poems, and became very central in the life. And so he stayed, and he wrote a lot of books in that time, also the Christian teaching book from 1855 to 61, where he also wanted like to give the Christian teaching a certain way of modern touch, and that was developed later in the People High School idea that we're going to talk about separately. This is the church that was built for his honor and used between 1920 to 40 when it was built finished, a beautiful piece of art. And here we have him in the picture I'm showing. Very, very special impression you get from that picture just by looking at it. And here he is as a priest in Varto, being painted there in his room. It was in 1868 that got painted about him. So yeah, that was about him being a priest, or just part of what it meant for him to be a priest. It was bringing the faith on with him. So he wanted to be a believer in what he preached, and not just a person that was hired by the state, eating by his belief and his ideas. He wanted to be something that really shock people up out from slumberness, and in that sense, well, we can say it had an effect because they became a whole movement that followed Grundtvig. The Grundtvig followers, they were called in their views and ideas, and stayed close to him, and thereby he built that bridge as a priest, as well as a mythologist and a romantic, and later as an historian, not the least in the next part, to build that bridge that brought Christianity over to the modern times, alongside the Bible criticism, the modern rationalism, the times where people were really trying to reset the political system as well, and trying to get free of those old ways of thinking. They wanted everything in a kind of renewal, and all that kicked in with the French Revolution, and kept affecting the European continent and nations for 50 or 100 years. And he was in the center of all that. That's why I think he's very important, and he's a good key to understand both the time there and not the least how you can build a bridge to take that monotheistic faith with you into the new century.